307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. What's good, YouTube? Good to see you guys as well. Our main man, Odie, is in network command today, as is Diesel, and away we go on the show. Coming up on the show today, why are we seeing more transfer portal quarterbacks now than we ever have before? And who is most likely to be lost by Clemson and South Carolina? Who is more of an upstate team, the Atlanta Braves or the Carolina Panthers? We've got Luke Easterling joining us at 4 o'clock today, your upstate's favorite athlete bracket, with an announcement of who won the upstate's favorite athlete bracket from yesterday. A close battle was had to be witnessed. Is NIL working for or against the Clemson Tigers? Perhaps me getting over this frog in my throat will be coming your way today as well. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got Can We Stop? And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. So, my friends, let's get started with this. There is half of the game of a very popular game that is being dominated by the other half of said game. And it's creating an imbalance that the sport is struggling with. Now, you know how sometimes like alcohol can mask depression, right? It makes you feel better for a few hours. It can cover some things up for a little while. And then all of a sudden when it wears off, you're worse off than if you hadn't had anything to drink, right? Like that is the gist of alcoholism and depression, right? That's how it works. You mask it. You cover up pain for a period of time. You know what I'm saying? So that is happening with what is going on right now in football. And it's happening right now at football at all levels. And, you know, there was a commercial way back in the day with Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa, and it was called Chicks Dig the Long Ball. And it was all about how, you know, let's sweep the steroids under the rug. Everyone's happy. Everyone's excited. This is great for baseball. And so let's ignore the how as to how they're achieving these records. Let's ignore the how there. And that's what they did for a while. And it masked the problem. And then when we realized, well, wait a minute, these records aren't really legitimate. None of Barry Bonds' records are legitimate. What happened was we were like, well, we just were lied to. This was a fraud. This was a joke. And once people caught on to that, they left baseball for a while. Baseball ratings plummeted. I do not think that is going to happen, nor do I predict that that's going to happen to football immediately. But as we wisen up and as we truly see what's going on here, what's happening to the sport of football is like an arcade game on easy mode, on easy level. And it is part of our everyone gets a trophy society. It is part of what is part of delivering what is sexy. It is the same thing as Chicks Dig the Long Ball. And that, my friends, is what is happening to the defensive side of the ball at all levels of the game, high school, college, and the NFL. Do you know that scoring is up massively in the NFL? You know that scoring now exceeds 24 points a game. Each NFL team now averages 2 points per possession. They have 12 possessions per game. Do you know that last year was only the second time in the modern era where the number one defense in the league did not allow less than 300 yards? So the number one defense in the league still allowed more than 300 yards. Only the second time that's happened in the modern era. The signs are all around you, but because offense and scoring is sexy, because the Chicks dig the touchdowns and the yards and the quarterbacks, they can't be hurt. Oh no, the Chicks dig them. The defensive side of the ball is struggling and struggling mightily. Channeling my inner Joe Namath, struggling. Folks, like sports media, right? Like newspapers, defense needs innovation. We're all having to deal with that right now. You know, like in today's day and age, if you are a quote unquote, if you are just a radio show host and you do not engage your audience with A-level content as often as possible, through as many platforms as possible, you're not going to be around anymore. Because the days of just assuming that you guys are going to tune into us on the radio and alone on the radio, those are done. Now, 82% of you guys, all right, my favorite you guys, 82% of you still listen to an hour or more of the radio every single week. And that beats any other platform that's out there. Okay? More people listen to the radio each week than YouTube. More people listen to the radio each week that are on Facebook. More people listen to the radio each week than listen to podcasts. All of that is still working in our favor. But all of us, to survive and then thrive in this changing landscape, have to adapt and adjust and reinvent ourselves on the fly. We need innovation. Those who innovate, those who find new and creative ways to reach and engage their audience are going to survive and thrive in the new age of sports media consumption. Football needs innovation right now. They do. So I can share this with you. I shared with you the stat for only the second time in the modern era. The number one defense in the league allowed more than 300 yards. Do you know that the last 6 Super Bowl head coaches have been on the offensive side of the ball? The last 6? All offensive coaches. Do you know that in Bill Barnwell of ESPN.com just ranked all of the skill positions in the National Football League? So he said, who's got the best skill position players? And on his standing sheet, all right, on his standing sheet, 10 of the top 12 skill positions in the NFL, skill position teams, have offensive coaches. Folks, that's not a coincidence. This is what they're doing. This is what is going on right now. So I don't know about you, but I do not like to feel like I'm watching a charade. I don't like to feel like I'm watching a cartoon. I don't like to feel like there's nothing the other side of the ball can do to be competitive. And the NBA kind of has this problem too right now. All right? The Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant were considered at the time one of the best offensive teams in NBA history. You know what their efficiency and point production would have been ranked this year? Middle of the pack. You know, the lowest scoring team in the NBA this year averaged 110 points a game. It was the Miami Heat. They made it to the finals. Offense sells. Defense is considered boring. It's considered oppressive. I want defense to be back again. I want defense again to have a role, to have a place in the future of my favorite sport. But it doesn't right now. It doesn't. The quarterbacks are protected at a level they've never been protected before. Offensive points, yards, defensive stats down, offensive stats up. QB injuries down. Wide receiver yards up. More games, more yards, more touchdowns, more points. Defense, anybody? Anybody? Bueller, Fry, anybody? So I ask you guys, and I open it up to you because I'm genuinely interested in your potential solutions here. What do you do about this? Like, what is your potential solution? I'm not looking to tilt the balance of power back in favor of the defense, which it was like in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. Like the Steelers' defense, I just remember you could not score against them. You were not going to score. The 40-year-old version scored more than teams scored against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and it didn't feel half as good. And so I ask you guys, what are your solutions here? I would tell you this. You can, by the way, chime in 71307 on the text line. Start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Solutions for the college game, solutions for the NFL game. If you feel they need them, maybe you feel like Mark Ryan, I think everything is fine the way that it is. I think it's going to continue to shift towards offense. Well, I just want the defense to feel like it has a freaking shot. You know, sometimes in college, the other team just has way more talent than you do. USC and Caleb Williams are too talented for the Pac-12. They could have a rude awakening coming in the Big Ten, but they're too talented for the Pac-12. They're going to score mid-30s, 40s, 50s against everyone in that league, right? And sometimes you just shake your hand and say, they're better than us. But you shouldn't feel like your team doesn't have a shot at the NFL level, right? Like it's just tilted so far in favor of the offense that there's no prayer for the defense. You just need the offense to screw up. Defense desperately needs the innovation that we have seen on the offensive side of the ball, right? What innovations are we talking about? The spread offense concepts. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, that combination together. Lincoln Riley and his offenses traveling, right? Defense, somebody on the defensive side of the ball needs to be a visionary. Someone on the defensive side of the ball needs to be a revolutionary. And I am not a smart enough football mind to tell you specifically what that invention is. But Diesel, I'll tell you, man, the game needs defense to come up with something. Remember the Wildcat in the NFL? They snapped the ball to the running back, and for a while it was all the rage, and people were drafting. And the defensive side of the ball needs an invention that works, that can help tilt the balance of power back in favor of that side of the ball, and or they need help from the rules committee to allow them to play again in a sport where you don't even know where to hit a guy anymore.
It's going to require a massive rule changeover in favor of the defense. That's the only thing they can do. I mean, you can't downgrade the equipment because then you're not paying enough attention to safety. The athletes are just going to keep becoming better and better and better athletes. I mean, that's what happens when you have better training, better nutrition, better coaching, specialization in your sport, et cetera, et cetera. So it has to be a rules change. That is the only way to make this happen. You have to change the rules to be more favorable to the defenses, or they could always do the Canadian thing. They just go to 3 downs. It's so weird watching Canadian football. It's like kind of watching football that you dreamed about last night. It kind of resembles football in your dream. You kind of feel like you've been there before. It's a little bit of deja vu, but it's all just a little bit off, a little bit wrong.
So do they punt on third down? I never watched that.
Yeah, they punt on third down.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. Wider field, punting on third down. I think every receiver can be in motion before the play starts. So it's not like only one player can be in motion at a time. It's entertaining. It really is.
They've tilted the rules so much, Diesel, that the current 4 downs to gain 10 yards is too easy for the offense. And unless you plan to make it, you got to gain 12 yards. It's 1st and 12. And you got 4 downs to gain 12 yards. Unless you plan to lengthen the football fields from 100 yards to 120 yards, not including the end zones. You need a defensive visionary, okay? Because these guys are not being hired anymore for jobs, Diesel. It's considered unwise to hire a defensive coach for your head coaching position because he's not going to be progressive enough. He's not going to know how to coach quarterbacks. And so the game is just so tilted in favor of the offense at all levels. Look who's getting all the gigs. Look who's getting all the jobs. Look who all the hot flavors of the month are in college football.
Look who's got the hottest wives.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Most trustworthy wives. Who are they? And all of which, folks, is created an imbalance in our favorite sports. And I'm tired of it. And I want to see it change, and I want to see it altered. And we come to you guys for solutions. 71307. Start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Solution number 1 on this end, you got to allow defensive players to actually play defense. Tom Brady was asked what's one change he would make to the game. And he said, you're going to be surprised to hear this, but on my record-setting touchdown pass, I never would have thrown that pass 10 years ago. because the receiver would have been broken in half. Now I can throw that pass because the safety can't hit him like that anymore. And I said, he's the quarterback. And he's like, I would tilt the rules back in favor to allow these guys to play. Diesel, you can't hit a quarterback low. You can't hit a quarterback high. Where do you hit the quarterback? The rules are such where if the ball carrier has the ball, lowers his head at the last minute, now you made contact with his helmet, the foul's on you.
Right.
The foul's not on him. He lowered his head.
Yeah, we're going to end up in a situation where NFL scores are going to rise by a percentage that would resemble the rise in NBA scores. Like it's almost laughable watching the NBA anymore with games that end 140 to 129. Like why in the hell these guys scoring 140 points in a game when they used to be scoring, 95 or 105? But it's crept up so much because the rules have gone more and more and more in favor of the offense. You're not allowed to foul. Guys are able to travel and take massive steps without dribbling the basketball. Nobody's calling them on it. And scores just keep going up. That's what we're going to have in the NFL before long. Scores are just going to keep going up. We're going to start ending up with NFL games where the scores are in the 40s to the 30s. And hey, that is an offensively entertaining game to watch, but it is not compelling because the defense has been taken out of the game on both sides of the football.
So, yeah, Diesel, the season before last, Chiefs played the Rams, and I think the final score, I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say it was like 41-38, and it was all the rage. It led, pardon the interruption, the next day, the most entertaining game ever. You know what I thought, and I realize I'm get off my lawn guy here. That doesn't do it for me. 41-38 in an NFL game doesn't do it for me. I shouldn't feel like I'm watching a Big 12 game, when I watch the NFL. I shouldn't feel like I'm watching Oklahoma State against Kansas when I watch the NFL. And when the NFL gives me 41-38 and one side of the ball is completely wiped off the face of the earth in terms of relevancy, I don't know. I check out. Do you guys even recognize this as an issue? Or are you like Liam Neeson in the GIF with everything exploding behind him? Nothing to see here. No problem. I see no issues whatsoever. If you're like me, I'm looking for your solutions. 71307. Start your text with the word fan and away you go. Texter says you have to allow the quarterback to be a target for the defense again. You have to also revamp the targeting rule. It is way too subjective. So says Mongo. Texter says, allow contact with receivers up to 10 yards. If you knock a receiver down while in route before 10 yards, then it is fair game. That would also, the byproduct of that, a texter says, would also add value back to the running game because short routes would be more difficult to complete. You have the 5-yard chuck rule, which says you can chuck a wide receiver within 5 yards. After that, you must let them go. You must let them breathe. I think, defensive backs will tell you this, folks. The novice NFL fan or the novice football fan, your DB gives up a 15-yard pass and he's like, oh, man, he got beat. Well, DBs will tell you that if there is a good route, a good throw, and a good catch, on some passes, there is literally nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. The best they can do is be there to make the tackle on some plays. I think that's happening way too often. I think Patrick Mahomes is a little bit too indefensible, right? And I think it needs to be leveled out just a little bit. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. Coming up next, whose GOAT is greater? That is coming up on the flip side here on the show that gives you both sides. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel with Odie behind the board right here on the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Truly do appreciate having you guys with us, man. Thank you so very, very much. By the way, for those of you checking out the show right now on YouTube, you noticed the threads today. You noticed the outfit. Here was the motivation behind this outfit, okay? It's kind of a crazy, kind of like colorful but halfway like Southwestern shirt. And I got up today and I said, if Diesel is wearing the same thing that I'm wearing today, I am suing him for copyright infringement. I said, what would be the least likely way that Diesel could be wearing the same thing that I'm wearing today? Odie, you don't know this, but in the last month, Diesel and I have come to work wearing the exact same thing twice. Not once, but twice. What was the first one, Diesel?
The first one was were the salmon-colored shorts and the blue shirt.
This was not a common outfit, Odie. Like,
no.
We're wearing salmon-colored shorts.
And I had just bought those 3 or 4 days prior.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, let's wear these. I was like, I'm not sure that I really want to be a salmon shorts kind of guy. So, like, I'll wear them to work where no one's going to see me, you know? It's a good work outfit because it looks okay. Looks professional-ish. But I don't have to wear it out in public, right? None of my friends are going to see me wearing this. And then you come in wearing the exact same color shorts and the exact same color shirt. The only difference is yours had some subtle little stripes through the shirt.
That's it.
And mine was a solid colored shirt.
So we both wore the salmon shorts and navy blue shirt combination. And then a couple of weeks ago, by golly, like I come in and thankfully, Odie, when Diesel is sitting where you are, I can only see from the waist up. That is a blessing, okay? And I looked at Diesel, and we had the same maroon shirt on. And I said, please tell me you're not wearing gray shorts. And he stood up and he was wearing gray shorts. And we had the exact same outfit again twice. And now it's a couple weeks later. And I actually thought this morning, you know what? We're due for another one of those damn days.
Yeah.
And I said, what can I wear today that will ensure beyond a shadow of a doubt? Like, he's got a camera in my closet. If he shows up, I don't even know where you would get this shirt.
The truth is, I would never be caught wearing that shirt.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You can wear that one with confidence, Mark.
Thank you. Well, there's only a limited number of orange and blue that I will ever wear. So when I actually see something that's kind of flashy, that's a little orange and blue, and it's a little out there, and it's a little loud, you know, that's become a strategy for me, guys. It's like it's a fashion strategy.
That one comes from Elton John's Western collection.
It does. I say, well, wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Wait a minute. What can I wear that Diesel will not possess? What can I wear that Diesel will not have?
You know what? You know where's the perfect place for you to wear that shirt is to the Better Than Sex dessert restaurant in Greenville. You know why? Because all the lights are turned off in there. It's very, very dark.
Diesel, I don't know if you realize this shirt just might glow in the dark. You might not be aware of that. I'm just grateful you didn't say, Diesel, to wear it to the Sweden sex competition. You know,
right, they wouldn't let you in.
I'm very, very grateful for that.
This guy's too out.
Yeah,
there.
guys. Look, I will not wear much in the way of orange and blue. I think orange is an awful color. Clemson fans know that I feel this way. But this shirt was just kind of loud and brash enough. You see, it's got kind of the Western buttons on it and everything. And I said, if Diesel says he wouldn't be caught dead in this shirt, those are the kind of things that I need to find to wear. Okay? Because then we can avoid the godforsaken, he and I looking like twins up in here yet again. 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us on the show. Texter says, Mark, exactly. Contact up to 10 yards would change those dynamics. 10 yards of contact equals longer time holding the ball, more time for the quarterback to be hit. And it, like I said, adds value back to good running backs. Texter says, I agree with everything being said about giving defense a chance. Something to note about defensive coaches is that Kirby Smart was a defensive coach and has 2 national championships as a head coach. Yeah, Texter, we're not saying there's not exceptions out there. The Houston Texans just hired DeMeco Ryans. There's a lot of hope and excitement surrounding what he can do. But, 10 years ago, it was a 50-50 split who you'd hire. You'd hire the best candidate. Whether it was offensive or defensive, you'd hire the best candidate. Now, you tell me what you see. 10 of the 12 best skill position units in the NFL all have offensive head coaches. The last 6 coaches in the Super Bowl were all offensive head coaches. Scoring up, defense down. You tell me the trend, right? No one's saying you can't, it's not possible. But again, that is more likely to be seen these days at the college level than it is to be seen at the NFL level, where it's like you need a visionary. Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow beat defensive coach Sean McDermott and Josh Allen in the playoffs. And it wasn't even close. Totally outcoached, totally outschemed. In the snow, mind you. That should have been a game where there's no chance Buffalo loses that game to Cincinnati in the snow, in their environment. Wasn't even close. Dexter says, Mark, the NFL is almost like watching glorified flag football now. Makes for good Sunday afternoon sleeping. I don't envy the challenge that Diesel has trying to make the Carolina Panthers compelling and interesting on a Sunday morning. I don't envy that challenge, especially with some of the seasons that we've had.
Well, 50% of the show is spent trying to get people to come and drink beer.
There you go. That's solid.
So that helps.
That's solid.
It helps.
Folks, I would say, and I've always said this, I watch college football to wind up. I watch the NFL to wind down. I've got every great college football game. Do you guys have any idea how much this has changed over the years as well? Like Diesel in high school, I remember opening the sports page and looking at they had a little section inside the front page and it would say sports on TV today. And there were legit days when I was in high school where it would say no events today. In other words, there's nothing sports related on TV that day. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much has changed? And the NFL has not gotten with that. They make you buy the NFL Sunday ticket. And because I have YouTube TV now, I got an ad and it said, hey, get the NFL Sunday ticket at a reduced rate. And I checked out what the reduced rate was. You know what it was, Diesel? $300. $300 that was the reduced rate to get the NFL Sunday ticket where I can watch the games. And I was like, screw this. I can watch every college football game for free.
Yeah.
Every college football game. Any college football game. You even have Florida and Vanderbilt. As a Florida fan, Diesel, I don't need a special Florida app. Every Florida game is on some network. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you're playing an FCS school, it'll be on tape delay somewhere. I don't need $300 Sunday tickets. I've got it everywhere. And so I get Kansas State against Texas and USC against Oregon and Georgia against LSU. And I get all those on the same day. And then the next day, Diesel, the 1:00 game is Miami against the Jets. And it just doesn't do it for me. Doesn't do it for me at all. It doesn't do it for me, unlike how this shirt does it for you.
Perfect reason to sleep in.
There you
The
go.
NFL giving us reasons every Sunday.
The best thing about the NFL is fantasy football. I would say, Texter, the best thing about life is fantasy. But I don't think we're talking about the same thing there. 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us on the show. I want to get to this. So we have now had very clear and decisive victories, okay, over the last couple of days. We've asked you the last couple of days, who is the all-time GOAT in terms of Clemson lore? Who is the all-time GOAT in terms of South Carolina lore? And what took me is not necessarily who won, but how large the margin is and was. That's what jumped out to me, right? We asked you who is the all-time Clemson GOAT, and we threw out the numbers for you, and we threw out the stats for you. and we had the running back Banks, and we had William the Refrigerator Perry, and we had Trevor Lawrence, and we had Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson had almost 60% of the votes, ran away with it. So much so that Trevor Lawrence was in second place. Okay, Banks McFadden was on that list. Then we asked you on the South Carolina side of things, who is the all-time Gamecock football GOAT? And we took your texts, and we took your calls, and we took your tweets, and we posted the poll. And here are the results. In fourth place, oh, by the way, we are approaching four-figure votes on this one with 10 minutes left to go in the voting. Marcus Lattimore is in last place with 13.5%. Jadeveon Clowney is in third place with 20.6%. In second place, it's Connor Shaw with 25.9%. And George Rogers, who's that? George Rogers is in first with 40%. I was surprised because, to me, thinking about it out loud, when we had the idea for the topic, I didn't necessarily know that there was an open and shut, black and white, clear winner for all these cases. I didn't know that. And yet that's exactly what happened. So I ask you guys this question, all right? And I don't even know, Diesel, if we want to put this on a poll, because you know how this is going to turn out. This is a discussion for you and I, okay? Who has a better GOAT, Clemson or South Carolina?
Ooh.
Because we have Deshaun Watson as the established GOAT for Clemson, and we have George Rogers, first-round pick, Heisman Trophy winner, all-time leading rusher at South Carolina still to this day, all these years later. And you know, Diesel, if we put this out to a vote, the winner is only going to be determined by who had the most retweets, which side of the rivalry had the most retweets. So you and I get to be the educated decision makers here and decide it for everybody. Because, folks, frankly,
we don't trust
I don't trust you. We don't trust you to vote honestly. We don't trust you to handle this with care. You know, I can't trust you to be unbiased. I just can't do it. Deshaun Watson, George Rogers. Diesel, what do you got?
Well, Deshaun didn't win a Heisman. George did. Deshaun won a title. George didn't. Deshaun being a middleman in the ladder of success that eventually saw them winning another national championship with the next quarterback, George Rogers. Did he have like a great running back coming in right behind him that was able to keep up this tradition of great South Carolina running backs? For that reason, no, I'm going to say this edges Deshaun.
Deshaun Watson. Diesel goes Deshaun in the who has a better GOAT debate. Diesel goes Deshaun Watson. What do I say? George Rogers, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun has Massagegate. Deshaun does not have a Heisman. Deshaun held the NFL hostage to get a bigger deal. None of those things have anything to do with what he did at Clemson. Deshaun, again, was the principal reason why Clemson's most dominant era in the history of their program began. George Rogers was a great player on an otherwise forgettable team, right? On an otherwise forgettable program. One great player does not change that. And so in the end, when you ask, what have you accomplished? The best players in sports, Nikola Jokic, for instance, says he loses the MVP trophy. You know, Diesel, he loses it because he doesn't care about that. He cares about his team winning the NBA championship. Individual awards are so far below national awards.
He left it in what, his equipment manager's hotel room?
Yeah.
I don't know where it is. I don't care.
So, folks, I'm going to say right now that Deshaun Watson is the better GOAT. All right. So in the all-time history of college football in the Palmetto State, the GOAT of college football is Deshaun Watson. We've established that. We've got the GOAT from both sides. We've narrowed it down. We do not believe we can put it to you guys for a vote. The second the Spurs Up show retweets that with a comment, Clemson fans are going to lose, right? And because we just have a fundamental distrust for what you're going to tell us, this option isn't open to you. Sorry, it's not open to you.
Yeah, I don't really feel like getting 30 clown emojis and
no
being called a homer or a tater or anything like that.
No, we don't.
Because we know exactly what you're going to say and do as soon as we put that out there.
Diesel, we can podcast this segment. We can podcast the segments and just let people just enjoy the infighting that goes on.
Yeah.
Right. But we're not going to put this up for a vote to you guys. It's already happening. The Clemson side is sending in their arguments. The South Carolina side is sending in their arguments. You guys are so predictable at this age. I mean, really, you got to look at it from an unbiased perspective. And I think, I don't even think it's disputable that Deshaun Watson has accomplished more on the team level.
Mad Craft says that he is neutral and asks if he can have a vote.
Sure,
Mad Craft. What's your vote?
What do you say? What do you say, Mad Craft? Let us know. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. We value you. That there is very rarely a segment where we don't throw it to you.
And Madcraft says Deshaun Watson. It is unanimous.
Yeah, he's going Deshaun Watson.
I was gonna say we needed some collateral in case we suspected some sort of homerism on your part, Madcraft, or that maybe your vote had been bought with beer and ribs by Spur Daddy, but I don't think that's going to be necessary now.
No, I don't think so either. All right, folks, coming up next, why is there a mass exodus in college football at this particular position? That, my friends, is on the flip side. Here on the show that gives you both sides. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Upstate. Great to have you guys with us here. We've got Luke Easterling, NFL writer, Athlon Sports, joining us in the very, very next segment of the show. We've got Gamecock fans who are upset that we did not let them have a say in which side has the better goat.
If we went the other way, they would be like, good plan, good thinking. Yeah, you can't trust them. Yes. You can't trust them to be objective and say our guy.
Yeah. So
transparent.
So typically, guys, on this show, Diesel gets to the YouTube comments and I get to the text line, but I got to give credit where due. JD Wyatt, JD, I appreciate the idea, brother. He says, Mark, you should do this very thing on CBS Sports Radio. You should do like Ohio State's GOAT against Michigan's GOAT. Who wins the battle of GOATs? Auburn, Alabama, etc. You should do that. And that's especially in the dog days of summer. That's not a bad idea, JD. That is not a bad idea. You know, that hit so well for us the last couple of days when we did Clemson's topic and then South Carolina's topic yesterday. You know, as a host, what you do is you say, how can I spin this forward? How can I continue to get juice from that orange? And so the natural conclusion of that was, okay, we've got the Clemson GOAT. We've got the South Carolina GOAT. Who wins that matchup? Who is the ultimate college football GOAT from the state? All right. Texter says, let's see here. George Rogers was also a number one pick in the NFL draft and won a Super Bowl with Washington. So says Spur Daddy. Texter says Watson could have won a Heisman if Clemson had played him 4 quarters and padded his stats. Yeah, that's not what Dabo does. Dabo plays more players than anybody else in college football.
It's amazing when he would always tell how many players he'd played. We played 117 guys. How? You only have 85 on scholarship, Dabo. How do you keep pulling that off?
A texter sent me something about how to access every sports channel, and he says, do not read this on the air. So I'm going to respect his wishes, other than to say I'm incredibly jealous, texter, incredibly jealous. Hurricane Jeff says, since I don't have a dog in the fight, I would have said George Rogers. He won a Heisman and wasn't surrounded by superior talent. I would argue, George, that Deshaun Watson wasn't surrounded by superior talent. He had better talent than George Rogers did, right? At the same time, he accomplished far more. Do you realize, Hurricane Jeff, that the least talented team to win a national championship in the modern era is the Clemson Tigers team of 2016? That is per the blue chip ratio, right? Which says to win a national championship, more than 50% of your roster has to be 4- and 5-star players coming out of high school. Clemson won that 2016 national championship with a blue chip ratio of 52%. So, folks, I'm not trying to bag on Clemson here. That was, in terms of raw talent, the least talented team that's ever won one, which I think is a further tip of the cap to Deshaun Watson. Because look at what he was able to win with, right? Like less talent than anyone else had. You know as well as I do, the Trevor Lawrence team in 2018 was way better than what Deshaun Watson won with, right? Taj Boyd took Clemson from a C to a B. Deshaun Watson took them from a B to an A. Trevor Lawrence took them from an A to an A+, and then they fell back from an A+ right back to a B again with DJ Uiagalelei. By the way, this true story. DJ Uiagalelei's dad has blocked me on Twitter, Diesel. He's blocked me. Big Dave Uiagalelei. We've had him on the show. Great dude. Look, you don't have to like me. But what's crazy about that to me, Diesel, is I don't even know what I did. You know what I mean? Like, was it just our regular conversation about DJ, Diesel? Was it something you posted that I said about DJ? Suddenly, I find myself blocked. And I want to give you guys a little update on this.
For a big man, that is a little thing to do.
Yeah. Diesel, do you remember a week ago when we had on Chris Phillips and we had, Shane Beamer's was off to a great start in recruiting, hasn't delivered a blue chip in the last couple of months. Is there cause for concern, or are big things on the horizon? Remember that? Remember that one? Do you remember that I got a tweet from a Goose Twitter account when I said that said, I am outside your house with a gun?
Yeah.
I have been sent a picture today that account has been done away with by Twitter.
Good.
I was sent a picture today. His account was terminated by Twitter for a violation of Twitter policy, which says specifically for violating rules against violent speech. So there you go. There you go. You come at the bull, you get the horns, man. You see what happens there? See what happens? How do you like them apples? We've got, that's right, Odie, that's right. Coming up next on the show, wide-ranging and fun NFL chat with our guy Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports. Coming your way next, right here, the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What do I have here?
You read for Mr. Sparky?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark Ryan here to tell you about my friends at Mr. Sparky of the Upstate, right here in upstate South Carolina. Folks, Mr. Sparky has got an unbelievable opportunity for you right now. But I'll tell you what, sometimes you're not in the mood for a deal. Sometimes you just want to know that somebody's there for you in your time of need. So in this message, I'm going to tell you exactly that. If you feel like at any point you have a need for an electrician, okay, Mr. Sparky of the Upstate is We are the Fan Upstate rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Truly do appreciate you making time for us in your afternoon. You know, folks, we open the show today by going into my desire, okay, and my longing for the return to the days of some form of defense being able and allowed to be played in football. And we're seeing this problem in all sports. Scoring in the NBA has never been higher. When people have tried to figure out, I read articles this year, why is it the highest? The Heat made the finals with the lowest ranked offense in the league. They scored 110 points a game. That was the worst offense in the league.
The answer is obvious. They're just unwilling to do it. The league is unwilling to go back.
And so the articles that I read, Diesel, said, you know, it's too hard to get stops. The rules are now such where it's just too difficult to get a stop. And I feel the same way about football. And you look at, back to the Chicks Dig the Long Ball commercials with Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa, and offense is sexy and defense is not. You know, Bill Barnwell has this article about ranking the skill positions for all 32 teams. 10 of the top 12 have offensive head coaches. The last 6 teams in the Super Bowl have had offensive head coaches, right? What can we do here to help the defensive side of the ball? Or is your opinion that there is no problem whatsoever? The 41-38 Rams-Chiefs game from a year and a half ago doesn't do it for me. You should be able to play defense on the NFL level. Joined right now by my buddy Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports, does a fantastic job for them. Luke, first of all, do you agree with the premise that defense is really up against it in football at all levels today?
Of course it is. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's any secret. I mean, I feel like the obvious tell with that was, I think it was either last offseason or the offseason before, Tom Brady actually came out. He was at I think he was at a Bucs event or something, and he kind of bemoaned the switch and all the rules that have constantly made it really impossible for opposing defenses to play football. And obviously he took great advantage of that, but I think him as a football purist who just loves the game and loves the sport, even he was frustrated by the fact that you can't, I forget how he said it, but he worded it in a really great way, where he was basically like, you're penalizing the defense and rewarding the offense when the offense makes mistakes, in order, like, you have those big, long, defensive pass interference penalties when the defender couldn't have done anything differently and didn't really interfere with the receiver, but the quarterback makes a terrible throw, underthrows the guy, and then the defender gets penalized for it. There's so many reasons why it's just so hard. I don't think it's ever been harder to play defense in the NFL. And obviously that trickles down through all levels because you're teaching what will eventually get you there. But yeah, I think that, and again, I played quarterback. I played on the opposite side of the ball. So when the quarterbacks are the ones saying you've gone too far and the defense needs some help, you have a problem, right?
So Luke, who do you need to convince to change the rules such that they are more favorable towards the defense?
I mean, the same people who will never be convinced. You know this. I mean, this goes it's the same thing. The commissioner, the owners, like, everybody is interested in, let's say, for lack of a better term, making sure they get reelected. Right? It's more about making sure that everybody at the top of that game is happy, and the money keeps flowing the way it's supposed to, and that sorts of things, as opposed to making sure the game itself is actually balanced between offense and defense. Like you said, you mentioned the other sports. Other sports have changed their own rules throughout the way. I think about hockey and the fact that they slimmed down goalie pads and did a bunch of things, eliminated certain rules, which some of those decisions weren't bad decisions. But the whole arc, the overall impact of the game is that it prioritizes scoring. It prioritizes offensive highlights and things that are going to grab attention, AKA sell tickets and all those sorts of things. I mean, I don't, it all just comes back to the money. If you follow the money, you'll find most of the reason for a lot of these things.
Also, Luke, we had last year, for just the second time in the modern era, the league's #1 defense allowed over 300 yards a game. Okay, so I mean, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at all of the metrics across the board, and I don't know. Perhaps I don't know. I'd like to think that there's a lot of smart football fans out there. But, Luke, I need more than 41-38 to just be excited about a football game. I like both sides of the ball to have a say. So with that said, Luke, do you have any specific ideas that you think could help? Maybe something a little bit reasonable just to give them a fighting shot? Or, Luke, is that side of the ball in need of a revolutionary coach? Are they in need of an Andy Reid or a Lincoln Riley on that side of the ball that has a scheme that we haven't seen before?
I mean, I guess I don't know enough about the football at that level. You're talking about coaching. You're talking about knowing the ins and outs at a level that I just don't. I have so much respect for the coaches at the highest level and what they do, because there's so many things. They're always trying to find an edge, right? They spend so much time trying to figure out the next big thing before somebody else does, right? But I feel like what's tough about that is the reason you see all these offensive coaches emerging, and you mentioned it, how many offensive coaches have won Super Bowls lately, how many of them are in the playoffs, and all these sorts of things. The reason a lot of those guys can be successful, not to take anything away from what they do, but because they're working just as hard as the defensive guys are, but the way the game is policed and played makes it a lot easier for them to do that, doesn't it? There are so many loopholes and so many, ways in which they can take advantage of certain things because they know that the defense is not allowed to do X, Y, and Z to prevent them from doing it, right? So they're maximizing their opportunities. Again, they're not doing anything wrong. They're doing the best they can with the resources they have. But on defense, they don't have that. They don't have that opportunity to exploit all of these rules that skew the game so far to the offensive side. So, is there some defensive savant out there that could have that kind of impact? I'm sure there is, but will the game allow it? Will the rules allow that person and that coach to have the same type of meteoric rise or success that we've seen even from some of the more younger guys? A guy like Sean McVay obviously comes to mind. Can that guy become Sean McVay on defense? Can that coach become that type of influence on that side of the ball when the rules in the game are working so hard to prevent that from happening? I just don't know.
Luke, from what you know of Bryce Young, the college player, do you think he will be able to exploit the NFL's rules and be successful at it at the NFL level?
I mean, I don't see why not. Again, one thing that I love that Bryce said, even during his college career, in terms of bringing up his size and people being concerned that he's not big enough. I mean, he said he's been this size his whole life. He's been smaller than everybody else pretty much his whole life, and it hasn't really bothered him yet. So, obviously the NFL is a different game. It's a different level. It's the highest level, and it will be tough, just like it is for any rookie quarterback. But if you really watch the way he plays the game, the Steph Curry comparison is really fun. And I think those types of comparisons oversimplify a lot of things, but that's really what he looks like on the field. He looks like a guy who is, obviously the smallest guy on the field, but he's so unshakable mentally, and he understands the game and what's happening in front of him at such a high level. It looks like everybody else is moving in slow motion, and he's just directing traffic and directing the symphony. I feel like his competitiveness, his intelligence, his understanding of the game, his ability as a teammate and a leader to get guys around him to buy in. I think that locker room will fall in love with him as a leader. I think he has all the skills in the world. Again, he doesn't have the biggest arm. He's obviously not the biggest guy. He doesn't have one, physical trait that stands out and says, wow, that guy can be a superstar, like we've seen with a guy like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or some of these guys. But I feel like he's got the most important one, and that's between his ears. So the way he was able to play at such a high level at Alabama with all that pressure, being the type of recruit that he was with all the pressure that comes along with that, and playing against top talent in the country for the last 2 seasons, and the way he was able to consistently perform at a high level, I don't see why he would have any problem doing what he did at college at the NFL level eventually, because, again, I just think he understands the game so well, and going back to the rules, as you mentioned, I feel like he will be smart enough to exploit all of that.
We've got Luke Easterling joining us here on the show. Luke, I am kind of the Debbie Downer here, it feels like, on the Carolina Panthers. There's a lot of folks in this area, and I saw even Colin Cowherd pick the Panthers to win the NFC South. Upwards of 80% of NFL divisions the last 10 years have been won by the team in the division that has the best quarterback. I think that's easily New Orleans and Derek Carr. I think the skill position talent for Carolina is a joke. Bill Barnwell agrees with that, having them at number 31. This feels like a 5-12 or 6-11 year for me. Are you more along those lines or along the lines that they could stun, win a division at 10-7 or 9-8?
I think nothing in this division would surprise me, right? I feel like somebody's going to probably win it by default again. I don't know if it'll be quite as bad as it was last year with the Bucks and their losing record, kind of falling into a home playoff game as the 4 seed there at 8-9. But I would agree with you in terms of New Orleans, not just because of Derek Carr, but because they have a defense that has played together for so long and played for Dennis Allen for so long. I think they're going to ride that defense and that experience on that side of the ball and just hope Carr can do enough. And again, he's the most experienced guy there. So in terms of the Panthers, I like the upside that Bryce Young brings long term. I don't know how long that's going to take to set in, and I don't know that there's enough talent around him to even be the best team in maybe the worst division in football. I like what Atlanta added this offseason a bit better than what the Panthers did. I think Tampa Bay could surprise. I think that the rest of that roster is a lot more talented than people give them credit for, and I think everybody's in the they're going to tank now. I knew they were going to do that. They didn't do that this offseason. They kept Levante David. They kept Jamel Dean. They kept a lot of talent, and so it's going to come down to the quarterback there as well in Baker Mayfield. But the Panthers, I don't know that they'll be the worst team in the division, but I don't see them being the best one. I think them and Atlanta and Tampa Bay will probably be fighting for second place. There's some upside to be excited about long term, but this year I think that's expecting them to win this division. Even this division is a little bit rich for me.
Luke, what player that you played with in your time showed you the most raw athletic ability that, even while you were wearing the helmet and just watching this guy do what he does, blew you away day in and day out, what they were able to do?
When I played football?
Yes.
Oh man, let's see. I played at a very tiny high school and then played NAIA ball for like 5 minutes for a nice cup of coffee. So there weren't, I didn't see a lot of top end, high end talent, but when here's what I'll say about this, the game in general. And I make this point to help people understand, even as fans, how difficult it is to succeed. I remember playing in the All-Star game for the Hillsborough County All-Star game here in Tampa, where I live. And I came from the smallest school we have, smallest class A. And I went and I was playing in an All-Star game with guys from every school. So the biggest schools and all across. And the first snap I took in practice with those guys, I literally just went to turn around to hand off the ball. And a defensive tackle already had me by the ankle. Like I was in like a sci-fi horror movie, and he was dragging me like to my death. Like it was the speed change just at that level from going to where I was used to on a weekly basis to playing with the top players in the county at that level was just night and day. And then I go to college and I play 1 year of college ball at the NAIA level, which again is probably like Division II, maybe Division III, depending on who you're playing. And we worked so hard. There were guys on my team that were so much better than I was, so much more athletic. And then we went into our first game and played against Lambeth University, who was one of the better teams in the country at that level. And they beat us so badly that people were in danger. Like people physically, like our team should not have physically been on the field with them. I feel like it was kind of like medical malpractice to put on the same field. So like when people think of what it takes to get to the NFL and how many things have to go right and how talented you have to be, just think about how good you have to be the worst player at the lowest level of college football. And like, I don't know, it gave me such an appreciation for the top talent. I don't know that answers your question at all, but it always reminds me to go back and look and remember when people want to say, oh, this guy sucks or this guy's terrible or what is this guy doing? I'm telling you, I've seen very closely what it takes and how much it takes to even be the guy who sucks on that team. And everybody at that level is just so talented and playing at such a ridiculous level. I hope everybody can have at least a little bit of respect for that.
Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports, covers the NFL, joining us here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, the Fan upstate. Luke, as Bill Belichick, 10 seasons without Tom Brady, 7 losing seasons in those 10 seasons. Is he an average coach without Tom Brady?
I mean, ask Bill Parcells, who was one of his mentors, right? I mean, like if you are who your record says you are, then that's what he is, right? I think it's obviously not that simple. But life's a lot easier when you have the GOAT under center for 2 decades. I don't think anybody would argue with that. Listen, I don't think in a vacuum, at the end of the day, I do not think Bill Belichick is an average coach. But when you have average results, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter what you are as a coach in general or all of that. Everybody's going to be judged by results. So, what that means for his legacy moving forward, whether or not he can find a quarterback that can be enough, for the defense that he always has on the field, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't think he'll be judged as much by those years without Tom as he will that iconic run that they went on together. But at the end of the day, like you said, those results, it's hard to argue that if you're going to pick somebody in that battle, was it more about Brady or more about Belichick? I feel like the numbers make it clear who was responsible for more of that.
Luke Easterling joining us here on the show. Luke, are you buying or selling the Detroit Lions, owner of the worst defense in the NFL last season, as the favorite to win the NFC North?
I'm not buying him as the favorite yet. The NFC North had a really weird offseason, right? You got Aaron Rodgers leaving the division, so the Packers, you assume, are going to get worse because they weren't even really that great last year with Rodgers, and Jordan Love's still a very unsure commodity there. I think the Lions are an ascending team. I really like what Dan Campbell's building there. I think Brad Holmes has done a great job as the GM. Turning over and bringing in talent. I liked what they did in the offseason, particularly in free agency, trying to address some of those needs, particularly in the secondary. I think they've got some great young talent up front on defense. It's going to come down to, again, if Jared Goff can play good enough and solid enough, and they can stay healthy, I think they can compete for that division. Minnesota, I think they're still the favorites, but they had maybe the weirdest off seasons of anybody, right? You've got a 13-4 team with an aging veteran quarterback, and they look like they were trying to rebuild this offseason. Eric Kendricks, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, all of these veteran leaders, 4 of their best players, their most respected, most experienced guys. And Donnell Hunter, he's won a new contract. He may not even be there. They may have to trade him to get out from under that. It's just so weird for a 13-4 team to willingly get worse and send the message to your fans that, like, yeah, we're okay being a worse team this year just to save a few bucks. I don't know what they're doing. If there's an open window for a team like Detroit, even a team like Chicago, if Justin Fields makes enough of a jump and they added a bunch this offseason, that division is wide open. I just feel like, again, Detroit's going to have to prove it to me, particularly on defense. They're going to have to be more balanced, more consistent before I'm ready to crown them. One of my favorite stats right now is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have won the Detroit Lions division more recently than they have. So I'm going to have to see it to believe it.
Luke, you study so much film and you do such a wonderful job with the NFL draft. And I know you also follow the current guys at the league. If I were to say to you, Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen, where can they improve? Do you have an area of improvement for each?
I think for each of those guys, it can all be funneled sometimes to the same thing, which is that when there is so much expectation on you at that position and you've accomplished enough and made enough crazy plays and taken your team deep into the playoffs, that becomes the new standard. And you feel like maybe on a snap by snap basis, you have to live up to that. So I think honestly for all 3 of those guys in different ways, because they have different skill sets, be who you are, but don't have to do it. Don't overdo it. Don't try to be the hero every single time. Let your teammates do their jobs and distribute the ball and take advantage of what you have around you. Because I feel like once you start to try to play outside yourself, and again, some of, particularly with a guy like Mahomes, that is who he is. That is his style, to run around and make crazy plays and be dynamic and force defenses to play him a certain way. Joe Burrow is much more of a pocket guy, but within the pocket, he can maneuver so well. So they play different styles. But at the end of the day, you cannot take that much on yourself and think that you can save the day all the time. Sometimes you got to take the smart play. You got to take the check downs. You got to live to play another day instead of trying to play hero ball. Those guys, as long as they are making sound decisions and not trying to overplay, I think that's really what it comes down to for all 3 of them.
And finally, Luke, you touched on it briefly with Minnesota, but I'm speaking here individually. Favorite and least favorite individual offseason moves.
Favorite and least favorite individual offseason moves. I mean, I really don't get the Dalvin Cook move for Minnesota. I know I mentioned it, but specifically, and I wrote about this extensively at Athlon when it happened, is that it sends a losing message to your team. This is not a rebuilding team. This is not a team that can't afford to spend more than you would probably want to on a 27, 28-year-old running back. Okay. I know most teams don't want to do that. He's already there. It's not like you're trading for him or signing him out of the open market. He's already there. He's under contract. He has gone to the last 4 Pro Bowls. He is playing at the top of his game. You only need him to do that for another year or two to maybe go deep into the playoffs and win a Super Bowl. And you're just saying, okay, no, we're going to move on. We're going to save a few dollars and we're going to go with Alexander Mattison. No offense to Alexander Mattison. He's not one of the best running backs in the league. He's not Dalvin Cook. So that move, again, more than any other one that the Vikings made this year, which, again, when there's plenty of confusing ones, that one told me this is a regime that is more comfortable sitting on this window. And I just don't understand it. It's so hard to go win a Super Bowl in this league. And when you have a 13-win team who's willing to save a few bucks and maybe a worse team, that move in particular, I know the running back thing is weird. I don't know, man. That one really bugs me. And honestly, I think I'm going to homer this because of what the Bucs did this offseason. I was adamant that they were not going to tank. They were not going to fire sale. They were not going to trade everybody. If I had to read one more think piece about how Mike Evans was going to get traded to 8 different teams this offseason, I was going to throw my laptop out the window. I just didn't understand why everybody just assumed this was going to happen. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have most of their Super Bowl team still in the starting lineup. And they attacked free agency. They didn't have a lot of cap space, but again, they kept Jamel Dean, who was arguably the top corner on the market. They brought back Levante David, a defensive captain, one of the best linebackers in the league. They really didn't have a lot of overhaul, and they had a really decent draft class. I thought they got faster, more physical. They added more pass rush. They added offensive line help. They've still got Evans and Godwin, one of the best tandems of wide receivers in the league. So the fact that the Bucs, despite not having a lot of money, did not mail it in, did not blow it all up and said, listen, we still play in probably the most winnable division in the league. We've got enough talent here to make some noise if we can get again, it comes down to the 2 most important things. Can Todd Bowles be a successful winning head coach without Bruce Arians and with what they have there? And can Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, whoever, I don't care who it is, can somebody be good enough of a quarterback to make sure the rest of that team can shine? That's really what it's going to come down to. But I thought that the Bucs did a great job not panicking, not saying, oh, Tom Brady's gone, we got to give up and move on. They're still going to try to compete this year, and I think they'll be better than a lot of people think.
Luke Easterling is the football guy at Athlon Sports. So good catching up with you, pal. Always do learn something each time we have you on. Invite you to follow Luke by the same name at Luke Easterling on Twitter. Great catching up with you, pal. Have a great summer.
Hey, you too, Mark. Take care, buddy.
All right, take care. Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports. Big thanks to him. Big thanks to you for the outpouring of votes that we're about to get from you on the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket, which is coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Wonderful to have you guys with us. Could not do it without you. Thank you so much for making us part of your afternoon. Today and every day means the world to us. Okay, my friends, I want to let you know that we had, unfortunately, in my opinion, the closest vote that we have had to date in our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket yesterday. It should not have been close. I was worried that it was going to be close, and it was close. To those of you that we had a chance to impress upon, to those of you that we had a chance to make our case for, that made the difference. But shame on Facebook, shame on Twitter, because on those two platforms, Steve Fuller beat Betsy Rawls yesterday.
You could have just said full stop. Shame on Facebook, shame on Twitter. Stop.
Yep. We owe the Offsiders, who we've long felt are a cut above intellectually, IQ-wise. Yes, I will go there. You guys are a cut above. You guys made the difference. And when it was all said and done, are you ready for this? Betsy Rawls beat Steve Fuller by 6 votes.
On Offsides, we're better than you.
Yeah.
And we know it.
Yeah. Like, you guys helped to get us there. But on Facebook and Twitter, Steve Fuller beat Betsy Rawls, and that is a travesty. That should never happen. And I don't want to be put in the position of having to dog anybody, having to dog a Clemson Tiger. Steve Fuller was a great player in high school, was a great player at Clemson, has his number retired at Clemson, was a first-round pick in the NFL draft, but didn't really have a successful NFL career. Just being as honest as I possibly can be there. Betsy Rawls is one of the top 5 or 10 female golfers in the history of the sport. Okay? She should be a shoo-in for the Final Four. And what we learned yesterday is she's not. She's not. Who's Betsy Rawls? What's that? You know, these people are voting. They don't have the first clue about what they're voting for. How often do you think that happens, Diesel, in elections? You know, people voting, hey, I'm 22. I'm going to vote for this candidate because my whole family does. I can't tell you what they stand for. I can't tell you what they're about.
The sad thing is they can't put platforms on ballots, even though they should. I asked somebody who worked in local government, why you don't at least get like a 5-point bullet point of somebody's platform when you're looking at their name on a ballot. And they said, well, because nobody can agree what to put on for their 5 point on the ballot. I'm like, if you don't stand for 5 things, why the hell are you even running for office? You know?
And I think Diesel, upwards of half of the country votes for their candidate because that's what their family's doing.
Yeah.
And they can't tell you what the candidate stands for. They can't tell you the morals, the ethics of the candidate. They can't tell you anything. It's just part of their upbringing. It's what they do in their family, and it's a shame.
Big question. Why do we have morticians who are affiliated with a party in this country? You ever notice that? When you look at like not morticians, excuse me, like the county coroner.
Okay.
The county coroner is an elected official, and they have a political party next to their name. What the hell do I care whether the guy's conservative or liberal? I'm dead. I don't care.
I understand. I get it and understand completely. So 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. We are ready to introduce today's matchup. Okay, ready to introduce today's matchup. Out of the MVP region, we have, my friends, the first of its kind in this bracket. All right. 2 totally different sports. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays up. Our first athlete in the fighting genre, we have hailing from Simpsonville with a record of 58-1. I got to be really careful going announcer on this, Diesel. You could get sued for six figures here. He's an expert in Kempo, kickboxing, and more. A 17-6 record in MMA. Fighting out of the blue corner, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, someone who's been a guest on Offsides, going up against, played at Coastal Carolina.
Yep.
Played for the Carolina Panthers. Played for, you put the wordy dirt in the tweet, Diesel, the Redskins. Okay? Played
Well,
for
that's
the Redskins.
when he played for the team, they were the Redskins.
Yeah. What was a member of the 2015 Pro Bowl, had 489 total NFL tackles. Good use of the Sounders there, Odie.
He's on it.
I'm down it. 489 tackles. Josh Norman.
Yeah.
Josh Norman. It's Josh Norman against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And my friends, the voting is open, effective right now.
I know which one of them would kick the other one's ass.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, do you? Okay, so Josh Norman is in NFL shape. He's 35.
Can he wear his helmet?
Okay,
though?
he's 35. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is 40. He went to Greenwood High School. Well, Josh Norman, what a career he had, huh?
Yeah.
Like one of the rare guys, Diesel, who was better in the NFL than he was at the high school or college level, was kind of I don't know why he was overlooked exactly. Went in the 5th round of the 2012 draft. In other words, wasn't supposed to be much.
FCS guy.
That's it. Or FCS guy with Coastal. When did Coastal join the FBS?
I'm gonna ballpark it without looking it up. I'm gonna say 2017.
Wow.
2016.
So an FCS guy, Coastal Carolina, 5th round pick out of Greenwood High School. Heck of a career for Josh Norman. Not quite Hall of Fame level, but not as far away from Hall of Fame level as you would think. A 3-time first-team All-Big South selection, first-team FCS All-American in 2011, a Pro Bowler in 2015, and also a first-team All-Pro in 2015 at the NFL level. Has Josh Norman officially retired?
Well, he
I'm
came
not so
back.
sure.
Remember, he came back for a short time this past season. The Panthers really needed some depth in the secondary. They brought him back. I think he was working at a coffee shop. He has a coffee shop in Atlanta, and he said, I can't remember who it was. He said there's another NFL player who had a marijuana store across the street, which is brilliant. You know, one guy sells the weed, the other one sells the coffee and the pastries. So everybody's working together here. I love it. But he said, man, I was literally working one day as a barista in my own business, and the Carolina Panthers called me and said, hey, do you want to give it another run for a couple of weeks? And he said, heck yeah, I want to put the uniform back on. And he came back.
And his contract expired January 8th with the Carolina Panthers of this year. So is that all she wrote for Josh Norman in the National Football League, going up against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson?
The dude is literally a deadly weapon.
Age 40, an expert in jiu-jitsu, a black belt in American kickboxing, a brown belt. We got to upgrade that. And Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Well, in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, a brown belt is higher ranked than a black belt.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's because the Brazilians really dislike the Japanese belt coloring system, and they said, well, we're going to change it. We're going to change it that brown belt is higher than black belt in BJJ.
Stephen Wonderboy Thompson was a great guest on this show, started competing in kickboxing and karate at the age of 15. So you got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson against Josh Norman. Now, Diesel, we have no way of knowing how the votes for this are going to go. No way of knowing.
Right.
But methinks that there is a chance that there is a rather large vocal minority behind Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. That is a possibility. I don't know that to be true. I think it might be true.
He is a local hero, and he's special because, you know, there's not that many fighters who are coming out of South Carolina. There's a lot of football players that come out of South Carolina. There's not a lot of fighters that come out of South Carolina. He ascended to the elite level at his chosen craft. But football is a more popular sport. You can't deny that. There's just more football fans than there are fight fans.
That is true. So what you have here, folks, Josh Norman, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, invite you to get your votes in right now, 71307. We will accept Stephen Thompson. We will accept Wonderboy. I'm wondering if Stephen Thompson is going to be a sleeper pick to win the whole damn thing. Could he be? He's not one that we considered when we were going around who's going to win this bracket. Could he win it? We're not one, we didn't really think he could be that dude. But I think he just might have that groundswell of vocal minority supports to get this thing done. Texter says, let's see here. Stephen Thompson, he's the coolest dude in MMA. Texter says Wonder Boy. Texter says Wonder Boy. Texter says Josh Norman. Texter says Stephen Thompson. Texter says my fraternity brother is married to Wonder Boy's sister. Gotta go with Wonder Boy. Texter says Wonder Boy. Texter says Wonder Boy to move on to the next round. So says T Hell. What do you guys say? Here's how you vote. All right. You can vote on our Twitter page at The Fan Upstate. You can vote on our Facebook page at The Fan Upstate. Is it like or hard to like for Stephen Thompson and heart for Josh Norman?
It is.
And you can text us, which is a real easy way for us to count your votes. 71307 on the text line. Just put that number into your phone. That's the number you text to, 71307. Have the word fan be the first word of your text, and then send us your votes. If you're listening right now, we'd love to know. Josh Norman, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, all competing for the right to be called the Upstate's favorite athlete.
And I love that if you are torn, if you're not really sure which one of these guys you want to vote for, you can go to the Facebook page or the Twitter page, and you can see a list of stats for these guys. So if you need to think about it, if you need to deliberate a little bit, make your informed decision as offsiders are wont to do, you can go to the Facebook page, you can go to the Twitter page and see a list of accomplishments and a little bit of their history, and you can make your educated decision that way.
Coming up next on the show, is name, image, and likeness working for or against the Clemson Tigers? We'll tackle that on the flip side. This is Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Oh, I'm excited about something that's going on behind the scenes, folks, on this here little device. Something is exciting going on. By the way, for those of you watching on the YouTube channel right now, let me see here. I'm going to show you this. Do you see the beach on the back of my YouTube channel? I had a somber feeling when I saw this because this is one of the, I got a beach picture as my backdrop on my phone. And that's the Florida Panhandle beaches. And Ryan Mallett just passed away on the Florida Panhandle beaches. Got stuck in an undertow. And I was looking at my phone today and it just hit me. I'm like, man, Ryan Mallett passed away essentially right here. There's like a two-mile stretch of beach that everyone uses there. And my photo on my phone was taken in that 2-mile stretch of beach. And Ryan Mallett passed away on that 2-mile stretch of beach. So I saw that yesterday. But gosh, that's such a Debbie Downer thing to say, isn't it? But something is going on my phone right now. And it is a potential that I'm very excited about. Okay. If it is to happen today, remember that whole O.J. Simpson special? If I did it, here's how it happened. If this is to happen today, it's going to happen at 6:45 p.m. this evening.
You are going to want to be here.
Yeah. So that's a little forward tease, right? So we are chasing something very, very exciting that could be happening at 6:45 p.m. Eastern time this evening. We will see how that all shakes out. Let's see what you guys are saying. Texter says, vote for the Wonder Boy. We have got the vote open for you guys right now. It is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson out of the MVP region against Josh Norman out of Greenwood High School. Josh Norman is a 7 seed. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is the 2 seed. And I get the sense, Diesel, that despite not being out and about so much, that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson really is beloved here. Why do you think that is?
Well, number one, Stephen is, I've met him 2 or 3 times, I think. He is as gracious and as genuine and as nice of a person as he is terrifying when he's inside the ring. I think he doesn't give you a choice. You have to like him once you meet him. He's just that kind of a nice, affable kind of guy. That's not to say that Josh Norman isn't, but Stephen, I think he just, like I said, there's a lot of football players that come from South Carolina. There's not a whole lot of fighters that come from South Carolina. So, it just makes you kind of one of one versus one of hundreds.
Wow. Folks, you remember the suspension that Calvin Ridley got for gambling in the NFL when he was with the Atlanta Falcons? The NFL took a lot of heat for that penalty, saying, come on, man, like you're charging someone with a felony when he's only guilty of a misdemeanor. The NFL has stayed remarkably consistent with that. Isaiah Rodgers, Rashad Berry of the Indianapolis Colts, and free agent Demetrius Taylor were suspended indefinitely through at least the 2023 season for betting on NFL games last season. Diesel, I've got a real issue with this. I do. It's I understand you can't even allow a toe in the water because of the mere hint of impropriety, but the NFL in one fell swoop is fully supporting the money that gambling is being brought in.
Right.
Fully supporting fantasy leagues.
Do as we say, not as we do.
Right. And then saying, tisk, 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 you bit the forbidden fruit. Well, you put the forbidden fruit right in front of my face, but you ate it. The NFL is all about gambling. They're all about over-unders. They're all about win totals. They're all about spreads. They're all about figuring out ways to maximize that. And then when their own players do it, they knock them with a serious payment. Like one of these guys is a free agent, Diesel, meaning that nobody wants him.
Who?
Meaning that nobody really wants him. Demetrius Taylor.
Yeah, he's an App State guy.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good.
That sucks. I
want to say he's a rookie or second year in the league kind of guy. Look, even if the NFL says we don't want you gambling on football, gamble on literally anything else that you want to. Don't gamble on football.
And I just think when the NFL is behind all of these gambling initiatives, I think that's a tough ask. That is a very, very tough ask. You know, one of the hardest things we have to do here, folks, is we don't get to participate in any of the contests. I want to participate in every contest, right? But I don't get to participate. You know how many cool things we have to give away that we can't participate in? It's hard, but you learn right away that's a no-no. You can't do that. It's a violation of rules. Might even be against the law, right? You got to know what you can and can't do. All right, we've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Dees. What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Truly wonderful to have you guys with us on the show. No, there's a ton of choices out there, and I can't tell you how much it means to us that you choose us. Looking for your votes on the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. Today's matchup, Josh Norman, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. But it is time for us, my friends, to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now. That is campy, isn't it? Hit it. All right, at number 5 on the show today. So the last couple days, we have tackled who is the all-time best Clemson football player? Who is the Clemson football GOAT? And we gave you 4 options. We gave you Banks McFadden. We gave you William Refrigerator Perry. We gave you Deshaun Watson. We gave you Trevor Lawrence. And you guys decided that Deshaun Watson is the all-time Clemson GOAT. Yesterday, we did the same for the Gamecocks. Who's the all-time Gamecock football GOAT? And we gave you 4 great options. We gave you Marcus Lattimore. We gave you George Rogers. We gave you Connor Shaw. And we gave you a 4th name that I am temporarily blanking on. In terms of the 4 votes, Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney was number 4. And George Rogers won going away. 40% for George Rogers. Second closest, Connor Shaw, 26%. So, my friends, today we spun it forward. And we said, okay, whose GOAT is better? Clemson's GOAT, Deshaun Watson, or South Carolina's GOAT, George Rogers? And we did not put this up for a vote with you. Why? Because we don't trust that you can vote with your head and not your heart. We don't trust that we're getting an unbiased vote. We don't trust that. So we went around the room here, and both Diesel and I said that based on the team accomplishment of national championships, Deshaun Watson is a better GOAT than George Rogers. What do you guys think? Agree or disagree? It's not up for a vote, but you're more than welcome to share your opinion with us. George Rogers accomplished a lot on a bad team, but the team didn't do so much. Deshaun Watson completed the most difficult of tasks, right? Taj Boyd took Clemson from a C to a B. Deshaun Watson took them from a B to an A, got them over the hump, and became the least talented team to win a national championship in the modern era. That's not an opinion, folks. Clemson has the lowest blue chip ratio that has ever won a national championship. Next up, at number 4 on the show today. Folks, I am lamenting the death of this in my favorite sports. Where's the D? You know, you can spell, yeah, there he is. You can spell NFL, you can spell NCAA, and no defense will be found. I am bothered by the fact that the sport of football is saying goodbye to defense. But it's not just football. Scoring has never been higher than right now in the National Basketball Association. Never been higher. The last place team, the Miami Heat, right, averaged 110 points a game this year. They were last place in scoring. 10 of the top 12 offensive units in the NFL have offensive head coaches. The last 6 Super Bowl coaches have all been on the offensive side of the ball. For just the second time in the modern era, the best defense in the NFL last year allowed more than 300 yards. So what gives? Why is this happening? Why is this an issue? The short of it is that offense sells, that offense is sexy, that they're protecting quarterbacks more than they ever are. And I don't like it. And I will kick and scream about this because I want defense to have a shot. Is there a fix to this that's out there, ladies and gentlemen? Or does defense need to find a revolutionary? Do they need to find the savant on that side of the ball that hasn't declared himself yet, that has a scheme that is so dominant that it becomes the one that everyone's copying?
You know how you dominate as defense? You hit the offense in the mouth so hard, they're scared to do what they wanted to do. I don't think one coach can change what a defense can do because it's still up to the 11 players on the field to go out there and play. So unless you can, A, come up with a scheme so brilliant that nobody can pick up yards on it, and B, you can train the 11 guys on the field and probably the 20 guys or so behind them who are going to fill in for them throughout the game to do it so perfectly that they can't get a penalty called on them, it's never going to work. The only way to make it happen is to change the rules to be at least even. You don't have to make them in favor of the defense, but call the rules evenly.
You've just got to do that. And they're not doing that right now in the NFL. We've got some ideas coming from you. We had a texter say, Mark, change the 5-yard chuck rule to a 10-yard chuck rule. That would help. A lot would help. But they're continuously tilting the balance of power to the offense so that the defense doesn't have a chance. Next up, we witnessed one of the most rare events in all of sports last night. Domingo Germán, a New York Yankee, pitched a freaking perfect game. Here's what it sounded like on the Yes Network.
Third, Donaldson has it. There it is. Perfection for Domingo Germán. Domingo Germán has thrown the 24th perfect game in baseball history.
Okay. So there are Yankee fans in my family, okay? And Diesel, I don't mean to be that guy. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, I do. Is it a perfect game if it happens against the A's? You know what their record is? You know what I'm saying? You know what their record is, Diesel? 21-61. They're on pace to have one of the worst all-time seasons in MLB history. They're losing their team. No one's going to the games. The owner wants to bring them to Vegas. The owner is going to bring them to Vegas. Rob Manfred is saying he feels sorry for A's fans. Come on, man.
So you're going to take this away from him because he did it against a crappy team?
Does it count if it happens against the A's? They're 21-61. I don't ever recall seeing a winning percentage in Major League Baseball that's this bad. I don't know.
Look, it'll go down in history as a perfect game, but clearly not one of the most impressive perfect games. I would like to know if there's any rating of the most impressive perfect game, meaning done against the team with the best offensive stats.
Yeah. So I will tell you this, Diesel. I thought this was interesting. Start of the game. So I'm watching the highlights of that from yesterday, and they're showing like highlights from the third inning. Still no runners on, no walks, no hits, and no one's at the game. Diesel, by the end of the game, the whole lower bowl is filled. And so the A's fans decided that even though it wasn't their team, right, they were going to come show up because their team sucks. The coolest thing they can see is history. So there was nobody there in the third inning, and then they were a filled lower bowl for the end of the game. How nuts is that, man? So you guys might remember a couple weeks ago, we had a chance to talk to Yankee great David Wells, and we asked him about his perfect game. Here's what David shared with us. What is it like to be perfect when all human beings fail? For a day in your life, David, you literally weren't human.
Well, I was definitely not human for about half of that game because I was a little inebriated from the night before. But but you know what? Once you come to and you get involved in it and you just stay focused, you know, it's pretty awesome. I mean, to me, it's not easy. A lot of games, a lot of players through the history of the game, and there was only 23 of us to ever do it. So that's saying something. I mean, pretty lucky to be honest with you, but you know, I always say you're only as good as those 8 guys behind you when you're out there on the mound. But, you know, it's a team effort, obviously. And we were just, the stars were lined up that day, and it's pretty awesome. It puts you on the map. It gets you invited to BMW. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's, you know, it's something that, you know, you have bragging rights. You know, I'm not gonna BS anybody. It's bragging rights because it's a hard thing to do. Some of the greatest pitchers in the history have never done it. So I got one up on them.
Yeah, that's a great clip. Big thanks to Diesel for pulling that. And it's a great clip. I don't know. I can guarantee you there's never been a perfect game against a worse team than the one that Domingo Germán threw last night. And I guess I'm going to be that guy. I guess that's how we roll today on the show. What do you guys think? Should a perfect game against the Oakland A's count? What do you say?
He's a guy that doesn't want banked 3-pointers to count. So.
Now, Odie, you say yes. You say it should count. Why is that?
Yeah, like, I mean, a perfect game is a perfect game. It doesn't really matter who you're playing against. I don't think so anyway.
It's a perfect game against a crap opponent.
Yeah, but
how can you achieve perfection against that?
It's like when you go out on a night out and you have a couple of adult beverages and you go home with something. It's still a good night, like, you know. It's like pizza. You can't have a bad pizza.
Oh, I would dispute that. You very much can have a bad night.
So what you're saying is 2 4s is better than 1 8? Or no 8s?
There you go. 2 4s is better than an 8.
I think that's what he said. All right, next up. At number 2, we've got our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket for you today. Look, is Josh Norman, who's going up against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, is he going to win because football is just so much more popular than mixed martial arts? Or is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson actually a low-key dark horse candidate to win the whole damn thing? You know, these MMA fighters have massive social media following, man. Massive. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is big here. Everyone knows who he is here. So that is the matchup, my friends, today. Betsy Rawls beat Steve Fuller yesterday in the most narrow of votes. And today, it's Stephen Wonderboy Thompson hailing from Simpsonville. Kempo, kickboxing, 58-1 kickboxing record, 17-6 in mixed martial arts against Greenwood's own Josh Norman. Played at Coastal Carolina, played for the Carolina Panthers, played for Washington. 2015 Pro Bowler, 489 NFL tackles. I need a favor from you. If you are listening right now, please get us, if you're hearing me say this, please send us your vote via the text line right now. 71307 is the number to text to. Start your text with the word fan, and then hit us with Josh Norman or Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And finally, well, the USA got, and I watched a good portion of this game last night, hit St. Kitts and Nevis in the Kitts last evening. They won. They beat St. Kitts 6-0. I was watching it with Angela, my wife, and I said, at this point, I kind of feel bad for them. We scored 3 goals in like 5 minutes, and I'm like, the next 2 hours of their lives are not going to be good. She goes, yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. But it was something that happened late in the game that is drawing the ire of many. Something was deflated that should not have been deflated. Here's what it sounded like live.
Well, nice move and a little combination. Mihailovic almost dragging this one from outside, and the poor Williams is on the ground. Oh, don't give us the slow-mo. Oh no.
So the defender goes down in the box, Mark. He's on his butt, and his legs are splayed wide open.
Oh, no.
And then the American player shoots the shot from just outside of the box, maybe at most 15 feet away, and just destroys this guy's beans. Mashed potatoes, my friend.
I don't think they wear cups in soccer, Diesel.
No.
And I don't understand how that doesn't happen far more often than it does.
I do think the American player, though, owes him an apology. And Odie, it'll be the next clip down from that. And this is a great way to accomplish that.
Send over a bottle of bubbly with a bucket of ice in a card. Have it say tough break, get drunk on me, use the bucket to ice down your marbles, here's Z.
That is from Tommy Boy. That is from Tommy Boy. That's right. That's right. In honor of this, gentlemen, Odie, turn on your mic, please. Diesel, what is the all-time hardest you've ever been hit in the Playmakers? What is the hardest your Toastal Strudels have ever been de-iced? Okay.
Yeah. It was when I was camping at the Charlotte Motor Speedway infield. I was pitching a tent. As Josh, Payton would say to that, immunity. I was pitching a tent, and I was trying to drive the tent spikes down into the very tough ground. And I said to a friend, hand me that hammer. And he did not hand me the hammer. He tossed it at me from 10 feet away. It bounced once and then straight up into the biscuits.
And you still feel that pain today, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
You still feel that.
Every man knows exactly what that feels like.
Every step of the way. It's still there. Ladies and gentlemen, I was playing basketball in high school. I was a sophomore. I was a junior, and I was playing with a sophomore. And I was far better than he was. I'm not some amazing baller or something, but I was playing on the home court, and I don't lose on the home court.
He could dunk a tennis ball.
I could dunk a tennis ball. That's right. Don't ever forget that. And I rejected his shot. Okay. As I'm rejecting his shot, his legs, he falls off balance and his legs kick up in the air. Well, one of them goes right between the wickets, right? The next thing I know, I'm literally throwing up in the garage. It felt like my testis satchel had gone right inside my stomach, right? It felt that way for quite some time. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. I would undergo a tooth extraction with no local anesthesia before I would undergo that again. Okay. I just never do it. It was absolutely brutal. Isn't it something how everyone has a story like this? You know, it's there's a lot of things in our lives. Like if I said to you, best date you ever had in your life, you might have to think about it. Right. But if I say to you, hardest you ever got hit in the jujubes, you know immediately what the story is. So, ladies and gentlemen of the upstate, hit us with your story. Okay, hit us with your story. The worst you've ever gotten hit in the blueberries. 71307 on the text line. Odie, what do you got?
It might have been only blue after the shot. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being from Ireland and we like to fight a lot, I've had numerous little flicks in the plums. You know, it happens quite a bit. But the
flicks in the plums.
Yeah, the very, very worst one. I mean, you know, a flick is much worse than a kick, but the very, very worst one is I now have a 3-year-old son.
Wonderful.
And his head height to plum ratio is perfect.
Oh no.
I was putting a bulb. You know where this is going. He likes to run towards us and say dada and all. Well, not dada. He's 3. He doesn't say dada. He just runs up to me and, you know, whatever he's doing, he'll run full speed. About a week and a half ago, I was
About a week and a half
ago, I was mid putting a new bulb.
So that's why you're limping in the studio.
It gets better. I was actually I was going to go to the doctor to get a procedure done. I don't need to anymore. He ran full speed into me. He didn't want any more brothers or sisters. He was like, I am the only one. Yeah. And the worst thing is when they're done and they sit back and they smile at you and you're bent over in two and you've got the pain just below your heart. You know, it's not actually where it should be. It's mid stomach region. Yeah, and my wife just comes around the corner and starts laughing. Did he hit you in the? Yes, he did. Actually, no, it was. She said, "Did he hit you?" And I was, "Yes, he certainly did. He got me right there."
Hey, so okay? Number one, that story's great. Number two, do you guys go around in Ireland flicking each other in the plums?
Yes.
You actually flick. Yeah. That means my hand has to touch your plums.
So
I have no interest in that.
Well, you see, it's the flickage and it's so fast. The very best story I have, I was working in a radio station and in the local stations, we read the obituaries, the death notices. I was walking into the station. My co-host was there. I have to keep calm, cool and collective. You know, you're reading about people that have died, that have passed on. Just before I turned on my microphone, he dropped one. He proceeded to bend over laughing. I had to read the obituaries on the ground. Lying.
And then you added your own obituary to that.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Rest in peace, the two boys. Yeah.
You read your own obituary after that. Oh my God, that is brutal. That is brutal. Flicks in the plums.
Flicks in the plums.
I've now added a phrase to my lexicon today, man. This is great. Let's see here. Texter says, I jumped off a bike ramp when I was like 8 or 9, slipped off the pedals on the landing, puked for 30 minutes. So said Joey. Texter says, I finally heard Odie. Numerous flicks on the plums. And oh my God, it's only gotten better, says JD. Flicks on the plums. Oh my God.
I'm sorry, Upstate. I'm sorry.
This is what you've done to the show, man.
I know. I brought it down.
You're where you need to be.
I've brought it down so much.
Those are the top 5 at 5. That was hilarious.
One of my elementary school friends I've told you the story on the air. We were playing in his yard. We were in elementary school, and he's running under a tree, like a big tree with low hanging branches. So it's kind of dark in there. You can't really see what's under there. What was under there was a piece of rebar sticking up out of the ground right at testicle height. And he ran full speed into this thing and got flipped over. He front flipped.
No.
It's like being in the Olympics and doing the pole vault. He pole vaulted over this piece of rebar using only his boys.
I will say this, okay? I will say this, Odie and Diesel. Can we agree that women do not have anything that is close to that level of sensitivity?
Ask a woman.
Obviously, I've never been a woman, but Diesel, I will tell you this. When I was at my max weight of 220, I didn't have movies, but I was starting to see how I could have them. Okay. I was starting to see they were starting to pucker up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, dear God, I must lose weight, and I must lose weight immediately. And I'm just here to tell you, boobies, the briar patch, there is nothing a woman has, in my opinion, that comes close to the level of sensitivity that we have down there. And I'm just going to say that, and it's a hideously ugly appendage, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you could talk to God, wouldn't you say, hey, man, couldn't you have made this look a little bit better? Like, what is this thing that you stuck us with?
Why would God, this is a quote from a movie, so I can't give myself credit for this. Why would God put a jungle gym next to a sewage system? Just doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense at all.
But you see, when he was designing the human body, one of the angels came up to him and said, what are we going to do with these? And he's like, they can hold it in their hands. They'll be fine. He says, well, we've got some extra elbow skin. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, okay, make a little bag out of it. It'll be fine.
A friend's father-in-law got attacked by a deer and got his plums ripped out. So says Mike C.
No.
Testicular fortitude and flicks on the plums are the greatest things I've heard on this show. Yeah, you got the testicular fortitude from me and the flicks from you. Flicks on the plums. Odie is comic relief, flick in the plums. I'm crying from laughing so hard. Odie playing hurling.
Yeah, I've played hurling. Yeah.
What is that?
So hurling is, now I'm not saying this lightly, it is the fastest field sport in the world. The ball travels in excess of 170 kilometers an hour. That's about 125 miles an hour, give or take. And it's basically where you go to have a game with 15 guys on each side, and they beat the absolute ever-living stuff out of each other with sticks that look like 3-4 foot long wooden spoons.
So it's like lacrosse if lacrosse was a man's sport.
It's like lacrosse if lacrosse decided that it hated everybody. There's guys on the same team beat the living crap out of each other, just for for giggles.
There you go. Yeah. All right.
Just while we're talking about the plumage, maybe just tell guys, check them as well. It's not a bad thing to do. Just give it a little check when you're in the shower.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And don't be afraid to talk to anybody about that either.
Definitely not. Look, he's got the PSA in here today as well.
Got the PSA as well.
Certainly does. All right, my friends. Coming up next on the show is the NIL era benefiting Clemson or not? That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Oh man, you guys, hey, stream massive again today. Probably the most comments we've ever had on the stream. Thank you guys so much. We're gonna keep building this thing, and I know you guys. You guys want Odie on this show. We need you. We need you emailing our boss, Mark Hendricks, and saying, "Put this guy on the show." That's how you make it happen. It's true.
Hey, Odie.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to do Diesel instead.
No, you're still on the stream, so don't tell people you're gonna do me.
Oh, okay.
While we're still on the stream.
Oh, hey guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm trying to record something real quick.
Yeah.
I deserve a flick in the plums for that, don't I?
Thanks for
you
all the
guys
comments,
so much
guys.
for everything today, man. It was fun. But the show's not over. Just off the stream. Rolling on until 7 p.m. We'll see you guys there.